Hello and welcome to Taking the Biz. This is a channel dedicated to A-level business students and their revision. If you're only just discovering this channel, it would be great if you could think about subscribing. In this video, we are going to take a look at one of the most fundamental topics on the A-level course, namely that of sole traders. Now, if you're reading around the subject, you may also see sole traders referred to as sole proprietorships. It's just two terms that mean the same thing. And a sole trader is one of our different forms of business ownership that we could get questioned on in our exams. So what distinguishes a sole trader from other forms of business ownership is how many people are allowed to own the organization. So as the name suggests, a sole trader is a business that has a maximum of just one owner. Now, students sometimes get confused. They think that that means that a sole trader must be somebody who is working by themselves. That's not necessarily true. As a sole trader, you may only have one owner of the organization, but you are, of course, free to recruit employees if you wish. So you only have one person at the head of the organization owning the business, but you can hire a team of workers that will be in your employment to help you in the running of your organization. Now, there are some distinct features of sole traders as a form of business ownership that might be a strength of that way of running an organization, and some might be a limitation that might deter some people from wanting to run a sole trader's business. And these are the type of issues that we need to try and learn about for our course, as they are a common source of exam question. So if we start with the benefits of being a sole trader, the most obvious is that with only one owner of the business, that one person gets to keep 100% of any profit made. There's no dividing profits between different partners in the organization. There's no having to pay dividends to a team of shareholders in the organization. Any profits made are kept entirely by the one owner of the organization. Now, that might be very attractive for lots of people, but so might the second advantage. Not beneficial to sole traders financially, but maybe beneficially in the way that they would like to run their organization. And that's that they have 100% of the control of their organization as well. So with only one owner, they get to decide the direction and the strategy of their business. There's no compromises. There's no time spent discussing different courses of action with other partners or shareholders. With one owner, that one person gets to make 100% of the decisions that affect that business. And that can be very appealing to lots of entrepreneurs. As can the advantage of sole traders really being required to complete very little by way of government bureaucracy. Now, bureaucracy is another word for red tape, for paperwork or regulations that sole traders have to complete. To start a sole trader's business, there's not lots of complicated documentation. There's not a lengthy registration process. What you have to submit in terms of tax returns or informations to Companies House is minimal or zero. So sole traders really can get up and running very quickly without lengthy documentation to complete and submit to the government. But on an ongoing basis, there's very little requirement for them to report on their business activities to the government or to the inland revenue. What they do have to complete and submit is very simple and very quick to do, which makes it another benefit for many people. As can a slightly more complex one, and that's associated with the kind of taxes that sole traders pay. Now, in the eyes of the law, a sole trader is essentially a self-employed individual. The law makes no distinction between the person owning the sole trader and the business that they are running. In the eyes of the law, they are one and the same entity. And that means that the business doesn't have to pay its own form of business or corporation tax. The person is seen as the business. So just like an employee or any other individual that has a job, rather than having to pay corporation tax that more formal organisations pay, sole traders pay a type of tax known as income tax. Now, why on earth would that be a benefit to a sole trader? Well, if you were a private or a public limited company paying corporation tax, you have to pay tax to the UK government from the very first pound's profit that you have made. So if your business makes just £1 profit during the year, 19% of that would go in corporation tax to the government. Income tax works differently. In the UK, people are allowed to earn a certain amount of money before they are liable for paying income tax. Now, for most people, that means they're allowed to earn a certain amount of wages or salary before they pay income tax. For a sole trader, that means they're allowed a certain level of profit before they have to pay any tax to the government. And currently in the UK, the tax-free allowance that you are allowed to earn before paying any income tax is £12,500. Now, for people just starting out as entrepreneurs, for people who know that in the early days their business might be quite modest, might be turning over quite small sums, for people starting smaller organisations that may not be hugely profitable in their formative years, the prospect of earning £12,500 tax-free might be very appealing to people and might mean they end up paying less tax to the government than if they were to register their business and incorporate it as a limited company and end up having to pay corporation tax. But there are some downsides to being a sole trader as well, and chiefly the one we want to write about in exams is that the owners of sole proprietorships have what is known as unlimited liability. Now, that means that in the event of business closure, if the business is leaving behind any debts, the owner remains liable or responsible for any of the debts of their business. Their liability is not just restricted to whatever capital they have invested into the business. If you run a sole traders, in the event of business closure, you become personally liable for any debts that the business may have. You might have to take those debts with you in your future life. So once you've closed down your business and perhaps returned to work or started another organisation, you are still liable for any debts that your previous business ventures may have left behind. Essentially, unlimited liability returns to the idea that in the eyes of the law, the owner and the business are the same entity. So if the business is declared bankrupt, or even if the business is sued, in the eyes of the law, it's actually the person, the owner of the business, that is being declared bankrupt or sued. There's no distinction in the eyes of the law between the owner and the business that they have started. Another obvious limitation of running a sole traders is that with fewer people owning the business, there's obviously fewer people that can invest capital when that organisation first starts. So with only one person able to invest capital into the business, it might start on a smaller scale than other types of business organisations are able to. It might mean that the business cannot set up on as large a scale as if another type of ownership was chosen and more investors or partners were able to put capital into the organisation. So that might limit the size of the business in its formative years, might also limit how quickly it can grow and expand and how big a market share it is able to amass during the first months and years of the business. So for some people, if they're starting businesses for financial rewards, sole traders might not allow them to raise as much capital as they need to start the kind of organisation that might give them the financial security and rewards that they are looking for. And the final limitation that perhaps we might mention in essays is that As a sole trader, although you can have employees, there is nobody alongside you owning the business. So it might be very difficult to find anybody to cover you during periods of absences or illness or holidays. It may well be in the life of a sole trader that if you are taking time off, your business is not earning money. Although sole traders are allowed employees, it's not common to have employees as a sole trader. Most people start sole traders and run it just by themselves as the only worker inside the organization. That means that when you take a 2-week holiday, your business isn't earning. There's nobody left behind to carry on running the business in your absence. You might frequently have to work when you're ill because unless you're working, you are not earning. So unless you're lucky enough as a sole trader to have employees and to have employees with the skills to run the business in your absence, this can certainly be one of the downsides of running as sole traders, which can make the life of a sole trader quite stressful. With nobody to share the pressures, the burdens and the responsibilities of running the organization, it can be quite a pressurized way of running an organization. But sole traders are one of the pillars of A-level business. If the examiner throws us this question in the exam, we've got to be tossing that up and hitting it out the park because it's one of the topics that other students around the country are hoping will be on the paper too. Hopefully that video will support you with that topic. We'll see you soon for some more tutorials. Keep on taking the biz.